right, I think it's recording. So good morning still, everybody. My name is Tiffany Wigand. Welcome to this session on strengths. Bless you. So getting the best out of yourself when it comes to strengths. So did anybody take the poll that I had on the app? If you're, yeah, it was a few of you, good. So about 61 people took the response, at least the last time I saw it. And of that, we have 30%, actually the stuff came off there, but 30% have taken the assessment and know their strengths. 26 took the assessment but don't remember their strengths. 23 have heard of it, and 21% are saying, what are we talking about? So let's see how this plays out with everybody that's here. So raise your hand if you know your strengths. All right, a few of you. Raise your hand if you took the assessment. All right. Raise your hand if you've never heard of this until this week. Wonderful. Well, welcome. Hopefully I don't scare you. I promise not to bite people in the front. I'll go to the second row this time. I love engagement, so I encourage heckling. I know that's like stepping outside of the Lutheranism, right? You always want to be nice. I'm sorry, what was that? What was that?
For heckling, I'm right here for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. What is your name, sir?
Bill.
Bill? There's always a Bill in the room, and I appreciate that. And the reason I love heckling is because then it encourages me, it opens the door to push back, right? So I can have some fun there as well. Well, my hope is that for those of you that have never heard of Clifton Strengths before, I hope you walk out of here saying, I want to go take that. Invest $20 in yourself. And for those of you who have already taken it, I'm going to give you other action steps. So who am I? Anybody from Wisconsin? Yeah, a few of you. It's cold there. I have to go home today. I'm not really looking forward to that. Okay. So I'm a Milwaukee native. I grew up Lutheran. I'm very blessed that I had that throughout my childhood. I've always been told I wish she was more like her. I have an older sister that is the sweetest person you'll ever meet. And they'd always say, gosh, Tiffany, I wish you were more like Shannon. Anybody else have it? I know, thank you, right? And it definitely stuck with me, right? I was always like, and then it got to the point where I'm like, well, I'm not even going to try, right? Because I'm just never going to be good enough. It's definitely something that I've had to overcome now. And my sister actually gets upset with me when I tell her that she's the good one. Because then she feels for herself that she's put up on this pedestal that she can't stay on. Okay? So if you've ever felt that way, or if you ever find yourself saying that to somebody, just kind of think about that and think about how they're receiving that. And I'm hoping that when it comes to strengths, it helps to switch your thoughts for yourself and for other people around you to say, God doesn't make mistakes, right? We are who we are for a reason. So yes, I was envious of others. I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I still struggle with that to this day, but this has really helped me say, no, I have a purpose. So I'll actually tell you, and I said laughter's the best medicine, so I've got Bill here already, ready to heckle me. You all can join in, okay? I want to have fun. I want this to be a memorable experience for you. So feel free to shout stuff or, talk with each other about things. I want this to start to resonate with you so you can take things back home. My first career was marketing. Okay, my undergrad was marketing. I worked in manufacturing for about 13 years. I marketed products that I didn't even know existed. Push buttons and relays and other things I don't even remember. Now, some of the guys in this room are like, oh, I know all that. Maybe, it's just second nature for you. Same with my dad. But I didn't necessarily have a passion for what I was doing. And then I got out of manufacturing and decided to work with nonprofits. And talk about amazing, God working in amazing ways. I got hired to work in the church that I grew up in. They hired me as a consultant to help them with marketing and branding. The church and the school were very separate. The people that went to the church didn't really interact with the school and vice versa. So they called me in to do some work. And if any of you have ever done any marketing or worked with marketing people, the first thing that you want to do is conduct some interviews, right? Because I can go in and I think I know what we should do, but I need to make sure that we're all on board and I need to make sure I understand the culture better. But what happened was people didn't want to meet with me. So the principal, after about a month of begging him to meet with me, finally met with me. The pastors never met with me. And this is a church that was near and dear to me, right? I was just like, I want you to succeed. And I kind of started to feel like they were willing to close their doors rather than come together. And I know we never really want to talk about this dysfunction in the church, right? But it exists. So at that point, I was realizing that the church was divided. There was distrust, right? Lack of accountability. There was a lot of negativity there. And I'm sorry, can you guys sort of see the screen? Okay, I'm trying to stay out of the way. So I was struggling with all this, and at the time I was aware of strengths, but I wasn't really using it in my life. I had taken the assessment, but I didn't necessarily do much with it. But my colleague had been doing this, he's been doing this for about 13 years. And he's like, well, Tiffany, certain strengths can butt heads with each other, right? Think of somebody right now in your head, you're like, oh yeah, so-and-so drives me nuts, right? It can be a sibling, it can be a spouse, somebody you work with, whatever it is. Well, that's what was happening in this church, and they didn't necessarily want to do anything to overcome it. And then I basically went to my colleague and said, I want to switch careers. While I love marketing, I'm not getting to the root issue. I actually wanted to go back to my church and say, instead of helping you with marketing, I want to help you with the culture. And this has been about 5 years ago, and the church is finally open to it. So that's a big thing too, right? You have to be willing to say, yeah, I'm not perfect. Or, instead of pointing the finger at somebody else, to say, yeah, there's a little bit of me as well. So on the handout that you have, right, it says up there, it starts with me. Right? If you're driving and somebody cuts you off, puts you in a bad mood, you're going to cut somebody else off. You're going to get home, you're going to snap at your kids or your spouse or whomever, and then they're going to do the same thing. Right? It's that ripple effect. So is your ripple, that first ripple, going to be positive or negative? So keep thinking about that. So again, we're going to have some interaction here. At the end of today, I want you to be able to remember this. I want you to take the word weakness out of your vocabulary and replace it with partner up opportunities. And if you think you can't remember that, for those of you who got chapsticks, if you didn't, sorry, I ran out. It says it on there and on your pen as well. Okay? So you're going to finish the sentence when I say this in the future. Take weakness out of your vocabulary and replace it with
Partner up opportunities.
Oh, I love it. Got some talkers. And yes, I saw somebody take a picture. If you want to take pictures of this is not going to be on your app. Your handout is on the app, but this is not. So if you want to take pictures of certain slides, feel free to do that. And then if you need to call on the heckler Bill to say, go back to a slide, I didn't get a picture, we can do that as well. Sound good. Anybody else want me to call out their name besides just Bill? No? All right.
Come on.
They know you like the attention. All right. Is anybody here, even though, again, maybe you were just looking for a spot to fill your a session to fill, but is anybody still thinking why? Why is Tiffany here? Why does this matter? Really? Thank you. I was like, some of you are lying. All right. Well, if for those of you who might be thinking, why are we doing this? Sorry, I don't know if there's any other seats in here. All right. Wonderful. So for those of you who might be asking why but are too shy to admit it, you might have the strength of analytical. So I have analytical as well. I'm the one that has analytical that says, even though you're telling me how you think about something or you feel this is the best idea, I'm going to say, show me. Show me the data. Show me the proof. Right? So the analytical says, why? Give me the data. Right? I love numbers. I love Excel spreadsheets. That makes some of you cringe, but I love them.
Me too.
I know, yeah, right? But guess what? We're going to be really good, what? Partner up opportunities, right? I love it. It energizes me. And I'm saving you. You're so thankful. And I'm thankful that you're seeing the positive in me. Okay? So this is why you should care. And again, if you don't like numbers, zone out for a minute or two. But this is really why we're here. 30% of the United States are engaged. It's nothing to do with marriage, okay? 30% love their job. They're the brand ambassadors. They live and breathe the mission, right? They're going to do everything possible. So that's across the last 10 years on average. Does that seem high or low to you? It seems low. But are you surprised? Exactly, right? At first it feels so low, but then you're like, well, I've worked with people and I've sometimes been, with other people that aren't necessarily engaged, which is what the next one is. Not engaged is at 53%. These are the people that say, you know what? I have bills to pay. I need money, right? Just give me a job. I don't care. And then 17% actively disengaged. These are the saboteurs, right? We know these people, right? I go to you and I'm like, sorry, you're in the front row. I go, I just got a raise. It was only 2%, and honestly, it should have been last year. I'm really upset, right? So you're going to be nice to me, listen to me for a while. Eventually, you're going to say, I got to get back to work. So I'm done with you. Then I do the same thing to you, same thing to you. So not only am I not working, I'm preventing other people from being productive as well. So those are the actively disengaged. These are the people we want to address to say, how can we get you aligned? How can we get you engaged? Maybe it's within the organization in a different role, or maybe it's not the right fit for them. Okay? So that's across the United States on average. But The darker blue is when U.S. workers and leaders work from their strengths. I actually had a gentleman stop at my booth the last few days, and he was telling me that he's like, I'm really good at getting things started, but I'm really bad at time management. And every organization I ever worked for always said, all right, your number one goal is you have to be better at time management. He's like, it always frustrated me. And then he goes, my last job, they said, all right, you're not good at time management. We're going to partner you up with somebody else. And I was like, exactly. He's like, to this day, I just talk about how much I love that job. Right? His leaders saw his weakness, but turned it around to say, we're going to partner you up with somebody else who can help you there, right? So we're going to partner up with Excel spreadsheets. You get my card, I'll help you, no problem. So 73% are engaged. How much more could your ministry accomplish if engagement went from 30 to 73%? Right? So it's about how can we adjust the people that we have with us, and as we're looking to build in more people, or if we're looking for volunteers as well. So we'll even think about that, like bringing in the right volunteer for the right thing. And I'll talk about that when we get to some specific strengths. I'll let you take a picture of that. Now, if you're anything like me, you might be saying, well, this is all great, but how do we fix it? What's the root issue? Well, for those of you who work in education, this is known as the engagement cliff. So again, same three categories. What this is saying that in 5th grade, 74% of students loved it, right? I don't know about you, 5th grade, I guess we didn't have nap time, but we had recess. That was awesome. We should bring that back. But once you start to get into high school, engagement goes down to the 30s, right? It's harder, but think about it, right? How can we adjust our learning, how we're teaching these children based on strengths, right? You might have somebody who has a strength of communication. They're the talkers. You're always telling them to be quiet, right? But instead, how can we say, okay, we're going to give you some more oral reports. You seem to love to speak. Let's get you in front. Let's really hone this strength in. So thinking about how you can adjust some of your teaching for that purpose. Because if this continues, again, once they get to high school, they're not engaged, and then going to the previous slide, that 30% or so stays there. And I don't even have to talk about COVID, right? These numbers are going down. Okay? Over the last 10 years, it was increasing, and now it's gone down again. So now we have to worry about the great resignation, as they say. All right. Any questions or comments? Like I said, I encourage interaction here. All right, just shout it out. So with Clifton Strengths, again, I want you to keep thinking about how you can apply this, and there's so many ways that you can do that. First of all, about thinking about yourself, individual coaching and development. If you're a teacher, thinking about taking this to the students. So the assessment is designed for ages 17 and above. You can go down to about age 14, depending on reading comprehension, because it is timed. And if you have students younger than that, at about age 8, they have another assessment that isn't timed. So again, if you're thinking about wanting to bring this into the classroom, you can absolutely do that. Team building. Maybe you have projects in your ministry, different groups that you're working on different things. You can do that. We've done marriage and family, and then again, thinking about volunteers and donors. And let's bring it back to Scripture. We have one body, many parts, right? You might say, if I asked you what the most important part is, you might say the heart, you might say the feet, etc. Well, you know what? We have many parts, and they all have their purpose. The same with strengths. There are no strengths that are better or worse. Okay, they are all equal, they are all needed. So keeping in mind that some of the people that you have in your team, that maybe they're a little bit quieter, but encouraging them to share their strengths. They feel like you don't want to hear what they have to say. Okay, but encouraging them on how they can help the team. Each serves its purpose. Each part is dependent to be most effective. And of course, we are all fearfully and wonderfully made. So again, when it comes to individual development, I'm going to keep talking using the word strengths with you, but know that you're born with innate talents, okay? So you are born with these talents, and then over time they're developed. So you want to, over time, develop this into a strength where it's consistent, near-perfect performance. So the example here, is anybody energized by this event where they're excited to meet a lot of people? Oh, man, again, you guys are going to be great partner-up opportunities for me because I can do this event, but I'm exhausted. I mean, I usually go to bed after midnight. The other day I was asleep by 10. So it's like, all right, I'm tired. So getting back to why I'm tired. So WOO stands for winning others over. So for those of you who raised your hand, you may have WOO. You love to meet and greet people. So the talent is to naturally meet people. When it becomes a strength, you're purposely meeting people to connect them. And I saw this over the last few days where I kind of just wanted to say hi to some of the exhibitors, and I could tell the woos out there. They're like, hey, Tiffany, come on over here, right? And then they just want to talk to me, but then you can tell after about 5 minutes they're done with me. Like, hey, you should meet so-and-so, right? I don't take offense to that. That's just how they work. They love to constantly meet people. So think about, they get energized by that, right? So how can you do more of that? In outside of the school world, I worked with people who were in sales. And then guess what happened? COVID happened, right? Now they can't go and meet people. It was, based on strengths, COVID was rough for different reasons. But if you're constantly out there meeting people and now you can't, well, you're struggling. So we want to talk through that as well with that worksheet when I talk more about that. Now, you may have heard of things like Myers-Briggs, Insights, Enneagrams, things like that. Those are all great. The reason that we focus on Clifton Strengths, though, is because some of those other assessments, there's a 1 in 4, 1 in 70 chance of having the same results as somebody else. It doesn't make you feel that unique when you find other people in a small group that have the same results as you. So it's helpful at the surface level, but when it comes to strengths, because there are literally millions of combinations, there's a 1 in 33 million chance of you and I having the same top 5 in the same order. People are not replaceable. Positions are replaceable. Okay? And the other reason that I love Clifton Strengths is it focuses on positive psychology, right? What do we do well? All right, what do you guys see? I heard saxophone player. A lady. Aren't we looking at the same thing? Huh, okay. So we can actually be looking at the same thing, the same situation, and see different results, right? So depending on your strengths, depending on your perspective, depending on where you're sitting in the room, you're going to see things differently. So we need all of you. So my encouragement is always to understand your strengths and share that with your team, because your perspective is valuable. And if you don't say it, nobody else will, and the team could probably benefit from it, but they're not going to hear it unless you share it. So what do I want you to do? Take weakness out of your vocabulary and replace it with?
Partner up opportunities.
You guys are a good class.
Did you have a bad one?
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's just quiet, right? I went to a couple sessions here, and there was a lot of quiet. So I didn't know how this group was going to be. But it's the last one, so out with a hurrah, right? So again, I talked about as an individual. We need to focus as an individual. Now let's talk about the team, right? Raise your hand if you've heard people say, you need to be well-rounded. No, I don't. No, you don't. Now you're going to go back to them and you say, no, I don't need to be well-rounded. My team needs to be well-rounded. Okay? So think about a puzzle. You're one piece of the puzzle. Where you have your strengths, own it, bring it. Where you don't have it, find somebody else who can help you. Okay? Again, if you're working outside of your strengths, it's going to exhaust you. Now again, we are all adults. We have to adult at times, unfortunately. But for the most part, let's think about that. So Don Clifton was a Christian. When he created Clifton Strengths, he said a person should get the opportunity at least once a day to say, this is why I was born. Obviously, Gallup took this over and has secularized it, but you'll see some undertones of Christianity. So we also teach the 80-20 rule. Sometimes people take this assessment and they feel like, I don't know if this is me, or I wish I was somebody else, right? And they've taken the assessment more than once. Our encouragement is no, this is really how you were born. Your strengths don't change over time. What changes is your awareness of them and how you apply them, okay? So my encouragement is for those of you who haven't taken the assessment yet, once you do, really start to reflect back to childhood to say, oh yeah, maybe I didn't have language around it, but this is how I used it in the past. So again, 80% is how you're born, 20% is the experience over time. So you're going to be developing those talents into strengths. So again, the encouragement is embrace who you are and who God created you to be. Yes?
So if I gave this quiz to my 8-year-old and she did it again when she was 18, it should be the same.
So with the 8 to 14 or so, it's a different assessment.
Right.
So instead of 34 strengths, there's only 10 categories. So at age 8, she's going to get an idea of, is she into achieving, competing, is it more different things like that? So it's higher level. So then when she takes it again, there will be similarities, but they will be different. But I would say if she takes it around at age 15, that should not change much over time. There are some strengths that are close, and that's why I have that caveat. And again, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, learner and input are very close. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. So there might be some changes, and we can always explain why if we see what those are. Great question. Any other questions? Yes?
Are you going to go over the process that it took for you to get the buy-in from your church?
I wasn't going to, but if we have time at the end, maybe we could talk about that. Great. Great question. Other questions? Yes, ma'am?
Could you go back to the participation from like 5th grade to 12th grade?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get a picture of that.
That one?
Yes. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So even though I'm talking about strengths today, I want to take a step back to say, as individuals, strengths are just one component of who we are. Okay? So obviously we need to deal with fatal flaws, but again, we want to really focus on those strengths. But you yourself might say, I don't necessarily see myself using strengths, or you might see somebody in your team, right? It's really easy to see other people's flaws. You look at somebody and you say, I don't see them using that strength. So then we say, well, let's look at this. Do they have high quality values? Do they practice virtues, right? Fruits of the Spirit. Are they healthy? This is the big component. Are they healthy spiritually, emotionally, and physically? Okay? So thinking about that, and again, I always say first look at yourself, and I'll be the first to admit that I know that I am not 100% healthy spiritually, emotionally, and physically, right? I know that I'm dealing with some struggles. I think we all are, and it's the idea of how can we incrementally improve. So for you, if you're dealing with somebody that's really frustrating you, or you two are butting heads, going to them, is everything okay? You might find out that they were up all night with their kids. Something else is going on. They didn't get enough sleep, so that's why they're snapping at you, right? So it has nothing to do with you. It really doesn't. You were just the person that was there when they were just in a bad mood. Physically, are they getting enough sleep, nutrition, and exercise? So I always tell people, if you feel you're not using your strengths, or you feel somebody else isn't, let's go back to the pyramid and let's talk through some of this. And as I mentioned before, again, you're born with the talents. We identify them. Strengths gives you the vocabulary to explain to other people how this works. And then you're strengthening them into your talents are becoming strengths with talent, skill, and knowledge. So again, thinking about the experiences you've had over your life. And then from there, you can really focus on building and leveraging those strengths. And of course, we can't forget about servant leadership. We teach SFOs, or strengths for others. Has anybody heard themselves say, or heard their parents say, it would just be easier if you did it my way? So by laughing, the answer is yes. So with strengths, what we encourage is to embrace who you are and understand the differences in others, to say, okay, how can I help you strengthen your strengths? We're going to look at that image and see different things. We're going to look at this problem and want to do it different ways. We need to understand that. So we can help guide people, but don't force them to be like us, right? We don't want to create mini-me's. What was that? Mini-me. You got it? You're welcome. All right, so you have a pen and paper because I made sure that those were handed out. And thank you to my helper. I don't know where she is. Thank you. Thank you for... I think so. Yeah, does anybody not have a pen and paper? All right, so I'm going to explain the activity, but don't do it yet. So I want you to find some white space on the page that you have in front of you, and I want you to sign your name as quickly and neatly as possible. I'll say focus on being quick, but it should also be legible, okay? And I will tell you when to start, because I have to... Some people don't listen. Don't we have teachers in here? No. Yes. And the teacher didn't listen. All right. I got to time you.
I did not.
What, Bill? Okay. All right. So again, sign your name as quickly as possible, but it should be also legible. So as quickly and neatly as possible. On your mark, get set, go. Yes? How does it look? Share it with people next to you. Does it look nice? Are you proud of it? Right? All right. So I timed everybody. I know. I'm going to lose them in the next one too. So I timed you. I picked one of you and I just timed you, and it took less than 4 seconds, right? So it was pretty easy to do. You may be thinking, what is the point? Okay? So here's the point. I want you to try to improve. I want you to be quicker. Did you? Because you cheated? Because you didn't listen before?
Because I did it the first time and I thought it wasn't legible, so then
Oh,
kept
thank you.
talking, so I did it again.
Okay, all right. I kept talking. Do we notice that? Pointing the blame. Okay. I love it. I love it.
You didn't say quit, so.
I didn't. Yeah, as much as you want. All right, so I want you to do it faster and neater as more neatly. Neater? Whatever. I'm not in grammar. All right. When I say go, but here's the thing. Put that pen in your other hand. You are? All right, I'll tell you when. On your mark, get set, go. Isn't that fun? Did anybody do it quicker? You're not done. Anybody do it neater? I have to check your work, sir. What's neater?
This one.
That's neater? Good job. All right. So I want you to remember this simple activity where your dominant hand is your strengths. Your non-dominant hand are your weaknesses. You can do it, but it's going to be painful, right? And again, we're adults. We're going to have to do things we don't want to do, but how can we reduce that? So again, when we think about strengths, do what you do naturally because you do it without thinking. It takes less energy. You get it done faster. You're more engaged. Okay, as teachers, does anybody still do the, like, if you do something bad, like, I will not do that, blah, 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 100, I have to write it 100 times? Does anybody still do that? Oh, perfect. Now, if you have your kids do it with the non-dominant hand, like, that's real punishment, right? So thinking about, again, continue to think about that. How can we make sure that they're more engaged based on strengths? Because you know what we teach? We teach energy management instead of time management, okay? Time management can be great, but I want you to focus on energy. Busy is the new 4-letter word, isn't it? Right? Everybody's busy, but are you productive? Do you feel fulfilled? So what this is saying is, again, we'll go back to what we were talking about with Excel spreadsheets, okay? When it comes to Excel spreadsheets, it takes me 10 to 20% effort to get about 80%, 90% of it done. So I'm energized. It's very easy for me. I do it without thinking. Whereas if you're going to do it, you're over here. You're almost empty. You'll do it because you have to, but it's going to take you 80 to 90% energy to get 10 to 20% of the results done. Again, thinking about what energizes you and what exhausts you. And when we get to that worksheet in a little bit, again, we'll continue to think through that with your strengths. If you know them, input them there. And as we're going further, if you don't know them, put what you think you might have before you take it, and you can always adjust that later. So, and we also teach the what versus how. So it's the idea that it's important to understand that strengths do not determine what you do, but how you do it. So this is great when you're working with students, right? They might think that, oh, I want to be a police officer, or I want to be a teacher, or whatever it might be, but they feel like, well, I don't have the right strengths. I wouldn't be good enough, right? What we want to say is, well, what do you want to do? What strengths do you have? How can you use those strengths? How do you think you can use those strengths in that role? Because again, there's probably a lot of teachers in here, and a lot of you have different strengths, and you can all be successful, right? So it's understanding we may see certain strengths in certain industries, but it doesn't mean you have to have those strengths to do that job. All right, so getting to what I have in front of you. So the best worksheet, if you know your strengths, I encourage you to put them in there. So 1 through 5. If you don't know what they are, as we're talking, as we go forward, if you're thinking, oh, I might have this strength or that strength, make notes of that. And then I encourage you to go find out your results or take the assessment and then do this worksheet again. Okay, you can always do this. And I believe this is in the app, so you could always, I think, download it and print another copy for yourself. So let's finally get to the BEST acronym. I'm glad you showed up. I purposely didn't include what the acronym meant. So I want you to get the best out of yourself. So when you know your strengths, what is the benefit it brings to your organization, to every relationship that you have? So on your paper, I have 2 examples on here. So my number 1 strength is focus. So selfishly, I put focus up here so I can talk about it. So for me, with focus, I'm really good at helping get things started and helping you put the blinders on and focus on that one goal. Because so many times, I'm sure in every organization, you have like 20 goals. Did you know that the word priority is supposed to be singular, but we've made it plural, right? It's supposed to be priority, one thing, not priorities. Because if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, right? So with focus, I help you focus on the one thing and get that started. So that's the benefit or the value that I bring to an organization. So when I've done committee work at churches, I'm the one that's saying, can we stop talking about it and can we start doing something? Like, I feel like talking isn't going to get us any closer to the end destination. So the environment that I operate best in is when I have minimal distractions when I'm trying to get something started or get something finished. So, and another thing too is with COVID, right? Everything kept changing. So it's like, well, this is my goal today. 5 hours later, this is my goal, and I'm just like, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so that's the environment I need is less distraction, and I know the goal. So as I kind of started to talk about, I'm struggling when my goal is constantly changing, and when I don't really know what my goal is. So who do I need to talk about it? Maybe I need to talk about it with my husband. Maybe I have to talk about it with my colleague. Talk about it with one of my students. Okay, so thinking about that with every single one of your strengths. And then I have intellection in there as well. If you have intellection, it's the 24/7 processing theme. You are constantly thinking about things. You're trying to get to the root issue to say, what is the true issue? Why is my student acting up? What could it be? You might have trouble sleeping at night because you're trying to think about it. And so that's the benefit, right? So your environment when it comes to intellection is you typically want to be alone. You recharge by being alone. So again, if you have an election and you're here, you need to go back to your hotel or go home and just be like, everybody leave me alone. Like, I need to decompress a little bit. Okay, so you may struggle when you're constantly asked to have an answer right away. You're going to be like, I want to think about it. I want to analyze it a little bit. So again, who do you need to talk to about it? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, and again, if you know your strengths, this is going to be a lot easier to kind of go through today and going forward. If you don't, again, I'm always happy to talk through this with you later. So again, keep that handy as we kind of go through things. So keep in mind, some strengths can butt heads with each other. So when you take the assessment, you get your results, and the results are up to 34 strengths. You actually do have all 34 strengths, just in diminishing returns. So if you pay Gallup $20, they give you your top 5. If you pay Gallup $50, they give you 1 through 34. So it's just a matter of what you want to invest in yourself. I always encourage to unlock it. It's cheaper that way over the long haul. You can always unlock later, but they take more money from you. And if for those of you who have taken strengths already, you're going to notice this looks really weird. You're going to say, I've never seen this before. And that's because Gallup teaches that all strengths are in 4 categories: executing, influencing, strategic thinking, and relationship building. So we have 8 categories, as you see here. One thing I'll point out before I go into the 8 categories is some of these have asterisks after them. That means that they're in more than one category. So that is not a typo. Not saying I don't have typos in here, but that one isn't one of them. So let's talk about these. So the first category is traction. So individuals who have traction strengths are really good at getting things started. Does anybody in here know if they have activator as a strength? Got 2 back there? All right. So activators, we jokingly say they don't even stop at red lights. They will take a right-hand turn and take a longer route because they don't want to sit still. Okay. Same thing in the working world, right? This is a really good idea. They have 1% of the information, and then they're going to run with it. And then as they get more information, they'll constantly adjust as needed, right? So the activators are going to be great. When you think of like donors, going to somebody who has activator and saying, hey, we really want to start a capital campaign, or we really want to do some XYZ, right? So they're the ones to go to them and say, can you help me get something started? Okay. You're not going to go to somebody with an activator and say, can you just help me stuff envelopes? Maybe they'll do it, but right, that's not towards their strengths. So they love to get things started. Then we want to partner up with individuals who have driving strengths. Driving strengths are all about finishing things, right? Have to-do lists, check things off of their to-do list. Does anybody know if they have significance in their top? All right. So significance is all about wanting to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So I actually have significance. So I used to be a solopreneur. I did my own marketing, and it was fine. But what I realized is I need to be around people, right? I love working in a team and collaborating. And it was because I only have so many hours in the day. But with significance, if I can partner up with other people, I can have a broader reach. So I'm going to get things done that I feel are going to have a greater impact. So some of you in here may have significance, and if you're working in ministry, it's because you want to just reach out to as many people as possible. So you can start things and you can finish things, but guess what? They might not be the right thing. They might not be the right time. So we want to partner up with seeing strengths. Seeing strengths say, I want to make sure that we're in alignment with our mission, our vision, our values. And it's something that we should be doing either now, later, or not at all. So for example, I have deliberative. Right? Remember, like I said, activators, 1% of the information they go. I'm the exact opposite with deliberative. Deliberative says, I want 99% of the information and then a little bit more. So I take great care in decision making, but I'm going to butt heads with an activator who wants to get started. And I'm saying, hold on, we don't have enough information, right? But the activators help me get started, and sometimes I help them slow down, right? If we want to maybe save money, save time. Connectedness. Anybody know if they have connectedness? All right, quite a few of you. So connectedness, not surprising. It used to be called the strength of spirituality. So people with connectedness see the big picture. They see the forest and the trees. They see everything in a web-like structure. And they see that everything happens for a reason. So again, being drawn to ministry, not surprising. And especially nonprofits as well. You want to connect people, programs, and ideas. And you are beyond frustrated when people don't communicate with each other. The smiles, right? We don't want to admit it, but it's true. Yeah, you're like, why is the first grade teacher not talking to the second grade teacher, not talking to the assistants, the special ed, right? If we'd all talk together, we'd realize that 5 of us were doing the exact same research, right? We just wasted time. Or, we both thought we could be in the gym at the same time and we didn't communicate that, right? We need to figure out schedules. So again, seeing brings alignment. So we can start and finish things, but we have to, at the right time, but we have to make sure we're thinking about people, right? People are what make up an organization. So people who have empathy. Anybody know if they have empathy? Oh man, you woke up this morning, you were in a great mood, and then you were around some of us, and you got angry, you got depressed, you just want to hit somebody, and you're like, why am I feeling all these emotions? I thought I woke up in a great mood. So what I want to tell people is, if you think you have empathy, you're like, I'm an empathetic person. You can be empathetic, but it may not be a strength of empathy. People who have empathy literally take on the emotions of people around them. So our encouragement with people with empathy is to make sure that you decompress every single day. Do something that you enjoy, whether it's exercising, cooking, reading, whatever it is. Do what helps you to decompress, or it will manifest negatively in your body. So if you don't have it, but you know somebody else who has empathy, encourage them to decompress every day. They need it. Anybody have individualization? All right, individualization. We got to say this one slow. It's known as the Strengths Finder strength. So people who have individualization see everybody as a unique human being. They can sense what your strength is very quickly. They can sense what motivates you and how to adjust. People who have individualization, I jokingly say, you are the rule breakers. I have my eyes on you, okay? So you're the one saying, I know that's what, the teachers, or that's the principal told me that I need to do, but I want to treat you a little bit differently than you, because I know that depending on your strengths, we need that. One of you might need tough love. One of you might need some encouragement, depending on things. And you want to treat everybody uniquely. But guess what? People with individualization can butt heads with people who have consistency. Does anybody have consistency? Just me and you. So consistency, we are the rule creator. We are the people that make sure other people follow the rules, right? So that's why I said I've got my eye on the individualization, because I'm saying this is what the rule says, right? We start at 8. We get a half-hour break, whatever it might be. If a child does this is what the disciplinary action is. I want to know what's expected of me, and I'm going to follow it. So getting back to the category. Lifestyle strengths flavor and influence how we live our life. So like I said, with consistency, I want to know what the rules are. Every time I had a new boss, I would say, what's expected of me? What are my goals? If they didn't set them for me, I was going to say, well, we're going to set them together. It was very important for me because I didn't want to get in trouble at the end of the year because I didn't know that there was a certain expectation for me. All right. Adaptability. Anybody have adaptability? Oh, we're not gonna get along. All right, adaptability, you go with the flow. Whatever happens, happens. You like flex time. Vacation, you're gonna just get in the car and go. I think that's true. All right, you're not gonna plan it, you just want to see what happens. Same with your school day or your work day. It's like you have an idea of what needs to get done by the end of the week, but you don't want to sit there and plan it out. This is 10 o'clock, this is 11, etc. And we'll talk about the opposite of adaptability in a little bit. All right, then we have wild cards. So Gallup teaches that all strengths have a positive and a negative side, which is true. Okay, we don't spend a lot of time on the negative, right? Again, we want to focus on the positive out there because there's enough negativity in the world. However, with wild cards, we teach that there is not a downside. However, talking for the sake of talking, sorry, not a strength. Learning for the sake of learning, also not a strength. I know some people who have learner always like to push back on that. But it's only a strength when you're applying your learning, okay? I know some people who just get degree after degree and don't ever do anything with it, right? So it's not necessarily weakness, but it's not a strength either. So if you've ever played poker or a game that has a wild card, the wild card by itself is simply a wild card. It's only powerful when you're pairing it up to make a straight or a flush, things like that. So the same with the wild cards. These are basically like key partner-up opportunities with all the other 32 strengths, okay? So thinking about how you can use your learner. So we teach that learners are risk takers. They may not always see themselves as risk takers, but learners are going to go in and learn something and become the expert in it. They just get excited about that. And learners can also mask themselves as other strengths. So a learner can go in and say, you know what, not my favorite thing, but I'll learn as much as I can about it from other people, from reading books, watching, podcasts, or I guess you don't watch a podcast, but watching videos, whatever it might be. Does anybody know if they have learner? We got a lot of teachers, all right. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of learners in here. I typically see that a lot in education. So again, this is going to be a great partner up to help fill gaps within a team. Then we have problem identification. So individuals who have problem identification are really good at saying, we are putting out fires, we should be turning off the gas, right? We're not focusing on the root issue, we're focusing on symptoms, okay? So people with strategic are very quick at thinking out 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Okay? They're the strategic planners. They're very fast. Anybody know if they have strategic? All right, I'm going to annoy you. Sorry. You guys are so fast. My analytical says, I don't know where you're going. Because what's happening is you're connecting a lot of dots in your head and you're verbalizing point 10 and I'm like, I lost you, right? So back up, slow down, help me understand. So again, keeping in mind, we can butt heads with each other, but I'm not doing it to annoy you, usually, okay? I mean, we kind of figure that I do that for fun, right? But I'm not doing it to annoy you. I simply don't understand. But once I understand, then I'm on board. So people who are strategic are probably going to be really good at helping your ministry say, this is where I think we can be 1 to 3 years from now. And then you can partner up with them and help them if you focus on the day-to-day. So again, they're going to focus on the true issue. And then we want the problem solvers. So the problem solvers are going to say, okay, now that I know what the real issue is, this is the simplest way to solve it. So again, just because you don't have strengths doesn't mean you can't do things. It just comes to back to the energy management, right? So I don't have problem identification. Doesn't mean I can't identify the real issue. It's just going to take me longer than people who have strategic ideation or intellection. So if they help save me time by saying, no, Tiffany, this is the real issue, I can say, great. Now I can use my problem solving to provide that solution. Does anybody know if they have restorative? Oh. Fix it now. In fact, why wasn't it fixed yesterday, right? It should have been done already. I don't even know why this is still broken. Why does nobody else see this? Okay, so that's restorative. If they have restorative and interpersonal, you likely want to fix or help people, right? Bring them to a healthy state, help them learn something. Maybe you're a teacher, a mentor, or a counselor. If they have restorative and you don't have interpersonal, you likely want to fix things, right? How can we fix this process? How can we, reduce all the steps and make it more efficient? Does anybody know if they have a ranger? All right. Does anybody want to admit, nobody ever does, but that your desk is full of piles, but you know where everything is? You probably have a ranger. All right. We teach that our rangers are known as pilers, okay? So somebody like myself might look at it and see chaos. But if you have a ranger, you know where everything is. So the reason that a ranger is problem solving is you like to work on a lot of things for 20 minutes at a time. Project A for 20 minutes, Project B for 20 minutes, C, etc. And then you kind of go back, right? You love this variety and flexing back and forth. Well, because of that, you want all the project file folders within arm's reach. So even if you don't have everything on your desk, and you might have a nice file organizer, in your desk, you may have a Ranger. And the reason that it's problem solving is because you have your hands in so many different things, you're able to adjust or rearrange to provide those solutions. Thinking about putting schedules together, or I've talked to a couple people that said, I don't know where I'll be teaching next year, what grade I'm going to be teaching next year. So that a Ranger is trying to figure out, okay, if I move you from second grade to fourth grade, well, who am I going to bring in for second grade, etc. Right? They're the problem solvers. Making sense? All right. Any questions? Yes.
So I'm not scatterbrained and messy.
Okay.
No, I'm saying,
Oh.
talking. If I'm in a Ranger,
Yeah.
I can tell the people I'm not scatterbrained or messy. If my desk is a mess.
Here's how, yes. We'll say yes. From your perspective, yes. So I'm going to encourage you to continue to be how you are, right? You operate best. Now, I have the strength of discipline, which is later, but I'll talk about it now. Who has discipline? Anybody? Okay. Discipline, we are all about order, structure, and routine. So yes, me selfishly, I'm going to come to your desk and be like, I can't work because you have a mess on your desk, right? I have to learn to get over that, right? And say, that's your space, this is my space. Discipline, because I like that order and structure, I'm going to see chaos there, but you know exactly where it is. So now that I understand strengths, I'm going to say, you know what, it's not how I can operate, but it's how you operate best, so continue to own it. So yeah, get out the definition of a Ranger and explain to them that this is why you are the way you are, and this is how you operate best. I have a colleague that his daughter had a Ranger as a kid, and had piles everywhere. And then one day his daughter was gone, and he had just fed up, right? He had discipline like me. He took all the papers, put them in one nice stack, right? Yeah, you know what happened, right? So left it there. She came home bawling, and like to this day she's like, I just remember how you made me feel that day. And now he's like, now that I understand strengths, I feel terrible that I did it. But again, from my perspective, it was a mess. But for her, now she had to start all over again. So again, knowing, strengths can butt heads, but having this conversation to say, okay, now I see why. Now we can live in our separate strengths, and that's helpful. Yes, sir.
Not a question, but a comment. My mom has learned a lot about strengths, and so my family has learned a lot about strengths. And what you just said about butting heads, I think having the awareness of why you butt heads and being able to reframe it from a problem to a partnership, that is very powerful for relationships.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of parents that see, going back to their children to say, now I see what I did and I wish I hadn't, right? So in that worksheet that I've given all of you, again, helps you give that language and just deciding who do I need to talk to about it and framing it from an objective, positive strengths perspective instead of attacking, like, Mom, why did you do that to me? Right? Instead of, Mom, I think I understand why you did this because we might butt heads here. Great, thank you for sharing.
This might be a tough question.
No.
But is there ever a time where a person in their top 5 strengths might have strengths that butt heads?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there are some where when we talk about strengths that butt heads or strengths that are opposites, we will see that sometimes. So again, when you take the assessment, if you just get the top 5, that's helpful. We actually we encourage you to unlock your full 34. And you really use your top 8. So especially if we unlock the top 8, we'll see some of those. And then, we'll jokingly say, well, this explains why you're always, having arguments with yourself. But it just gives you the breadth, right? So some people might have discipline and adaptability. It's rare, but you might have that. So it's like, okay, well, you're disciplined when you need to be, but you know that you have to turn on adaptability because in education, you don't know what's going to happen, right? So sometimes it's really helpful to have that breadth. Do you think you have 2 that butt heads?
I don't know.
You're like, don't ask many questions.
No, maybe.
Okay. Any other questions? Great questions. All right. So again, let's think about how these all work because remember, we want partner up opportunities. So those of you who have problem identification are going to say, this is a true issue. This is the core problem we need to address. And because of that, we want to then partner up with people with problem solving that are going to say, now that I know what the issue is, these are the 3 simple steps to solve them. Once they have that written down, they can partner up with Traction to get it started. Once it's started, Traction can partner up or hand it off to Driving to get it done. All the while that happens, people with seeing strengths are going to say, okay, is this in alignment? Is this something we should be doing now, later, or not at all? All the while you partner with interpersonal strengths to say, okay, Are we making sure the people are engaged, that they feel like they can ask questions, they can challenge us and have the dialogue? All the while you partner with lifestyle strengths to flavor and bring positivity, harmony, etc. All the while we partner with wild cards to enhance every step of the entire process. In the end, we want all 8 categories working together, all 34 strengths if you're blessed enough to have them, working in unity to achieve your mission and your vision in the most efficient way possible. Do you feel like, in a way, again, using different language, that you're doing this already in your organizations? I see some yeses, some nos. Do you feel like this can give you a good framework of something that you can do within your organization? And again, it doesn't feel like you're attacking somebody to say they're doing something wrong? Yes?
What happens, I jokingly said that about my desk, right?
Yes.
But I work with a bunch of people who are disciplined, I guess, highly organized. So I did tease people. But so my question is, what if you have a heavier, do you need to have an equal number of the talents, or, how does that balance work?
Yeah, and near the end of the presentation, I talk more about, I have a team example of what we work with. And again, we'll work with whatever team you have, right? So it's just nice to know where you are to get that baseline, and to say, as you're bringing in new teachers or as you're trying to bring in volunteers, let's look for certain strengths that maybe we're lacking. And I would say, using that worksheet that I've given you, if it bothers you, so I'm a jokester, but I realize that sometimes I offend people. If it is kind of starting to bother you that they give you such a hard time about it, again, use that worksheet and talk about it to say, you're very different from me. I just want to let you know that I would ask you to not give me a hard time about that. Does that make sense? And I'd be happy to talk to you more about this afterward as well. Yes?
I know in work settings, the awareness of knowing somebody is a different type than you does a ton of help. Like, to be able to know that you're speaking to somebody who thinks about things differently, just that awareness is super beneficial. So even if it's imbalanced or seems imbalanced, like, them being aware that you operate things, differently can cover a lot.
Well, and people, will come to you because they know you have an attribute that they don't. So under certain circumstances, they say, I need to pick your brain on this. But I guess I'm just wondering, in an ideal world, do you have a balance of all of the 34 things in your represented, or,
Yeah.
is there some kind of a formula for that?
Yeah, in a perfect world, we'd have that, but it's very rare. So that's where, again, be happy with what you have. I've worked with some teams where they have, whole categories, there's 0. So if you're just low in one, again, it's just the awareness of it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Partner to learn, like your organization, how well that you as an organization do this.
How do we do that?
Well, do you have all the areas covered? Do you think?
So actually, I didn't really tell you that. So my organization is Partner to Learn. So we are a team of 3 people right now. So when if I showed you ours, it wouldn't be very exciting, and there's a lot of gaps because there's only 3 of us. But a lot of the organizations we work with, they're much larger teams. Yeah.
Is there a limit? Sorry, is
Sure.
there a limit on the size of the organization?
There isn't. No, we can run a report for, again, 2 or 3 people, or a couple hundred. Yeah. One second. You had your hand up before. Did you have something else you want to share?
Maybe just some nuance. I really like that pyramid, because I think the strengths, vocabulary, and awareness is a huge piece of it, but it's also not a silver bullet, because sometimes you can have a conversation about strength-related things, but if there are character issues or stressors in a person's life, they might not be able to meet you there. So I think this is the nuance. This is very powerful, but the pyramid really captures everything.
Yep, exactly. This is not a one and done. So when we work with teams, we're often just doing a one session. We always say it's not about, I hope you enjoy this session. I hope this is a good use of your time. But if you just say this was great and you never think about it again, it's not going to change anything. So it does have to be this constant thought to say, how can we intentionalize this in everything that we do? And I do talk about that at the very end. Did you have your hand up? I'll come back to you.
I know with Myers-Briggs, they rate it kind of on a spectrum, so you might be a little more towards the center instead of on the extremes. is there anything like that with StrengthsFinder, or are you pretty, does the assessment sort of suggest whatever your strength is, you're pretty solidly in that? Because I guess I see myself and others sometimes adapting to situations because we recognize, oh, there's a gap here. And I'm wondering if that is, if StrengthsFinder would say that you truly are gifted in that area, or if you're not living into your giftedness
Yeah.
by trying to fill that gap.
So the assessment is timed. You have 144 questions. Please don't let that scare you. 144 questions and it's timed. You only have 20 seconds to answer it. And you can choose neutral for them. And what it's identifying is what strengths are absolutely not yours. Or you might be saying, well, Tiffany, I'm both of those. Well, it'll get to that eventually. So with Clifton Strengths, they are saying that really is who you are, because they're saying, how do you think immediately, right? Don't overthink it. I've taken the assessment more than once, right? I told you not to, but I did for that very reason. I took it twice, 4 years apart, kind of different worlds. And for me, of my top 8, 1 changed. Now, the order might fluctuate a little bit, but of the top 8, 1 came out and another one came in, and they were very similar. So that's where, again, yeah, there are fluctuations, but I think what might be happening within your team is, what kind of stress are you under? And then if you're under stress, how do you respond to that? And then are you or your team at a healthy state? Or it's just more you're doing what you have to do. It's outside of your strengths. It's not where you want to be, but you just know that that's what you have to do. But thinking about your team in the future to say, can we figure out who can fill that gap instead of me having to flex in because it's not really my strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm just observing that it living within your strengths does feel awesome. I personally not experienced such a drastic difference between living in my strengths and not, because I guess maybe I'm super adaptable. I don't know.
You could have learner. You could have learner as a strength. Do you know? Do you know what yours are?
I once took it, but it's been a long time.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, you could have adaptability, and then learner is also really good at adapting as well. Learners can mimic any other strength. So for you might be like, okay, it's not my favorite thing, but I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you figure out what yours are and want to have a separate conversation, I'm happy to do that. Other questions? Did somebody else have their hand up? Yes.
Wait, so there's a couple people in our organization who seem to, we are like-minded. We're like, okay, this, like, you do this, you manage your time. Like, if it's on your calendar, or you got an email, like, you don't need to come back and check with me. Like, you sent me an email, I read it, I'm good. And then we have other people who, like, you send them that email, and then they feel the need to come and have that conversation with you. And it's like, dude, listen, it was in an email, leave me alone. Like, and I notice a lot of times the conversation goes to, I just don't understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would something like this be able to help
Yes.
us understand
Yeah.
each other?
My colleague, so he worked, I don't remember, I told you I didn't come from education. My colleague did. So he comes from the notion that if a parent emails him, he has to respond as quickly as possible, right? So this is what he takes into our business, where if I send him an email, he's responding right away. And then he also has to acknowledge that he received it. So if I just say, hey, I'm going to be, a reminder, I'm going to be out of town for this session or whatever, okay, thanks, got it. Didn't need that, right? Or if I send him something, he's always saying thanks, and I tell him you don't have to send me the email that says thanks. He's like, yeah, it is. So that's just a little thing where I've said to him, please don't send me the thanks. I don't need it. And he's like, well, I want you to know that I got it. I said, I will always assume you got my email until it becomes an issue. So having the conversations and trying to be open about that, just from a strengths perspective and from a preference, again, that worksheet may help you have that awareness. So yes, to answer your question, this is what helps people have those aha moments to say, again, I'm not doing it just simply to annoy you. That's just preferences. And then this opens up that door to have the other conversations after the session, to get into the nuances where if you want to talk about it as a team, you can, or if you feel you need to have a one-on-one with somebody that you're really struggling with. So. I saw a couple other heads nodding that they've seen that has helped their team too. Great question. Did I answer it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Moving on. So again, did everybody get a picture of this that wanted it? No? Okay. I will pause then. right, so again, I want you to take weakness out of your vocabulary and replace it with
Opportunities.
first. All right, wonderful. Do you see yourself being able to do that? Partner up with people? Do you think about right now that there's probably some people you work really well with? Right? So again, let's capitalize on it. Let's leverage it. Let's figure out how we can do that more intentionally. So I'm going to make you do exercise. I know it's warm in here, but let's have some fun. Let's talk through some more of these strengths. So I want you to stand up if you see the bright side in everything. Even on a bad day, even with COVID, life is amazing. Things are going to get better. Example, you are always cheering people up. Okay, look around the room. Look, all right, you may have a seat. So you likely have the strength of positivity. So I will tell you that out of 34 strengths, positivity is number 40 for me. I appreciate it when people get my humor. As a child, I was often made fun of as a kid. You know, I know, you guys, some of you are really sweet. I know, right? So I would come, I'm going to pause, and I want you to look at my face. Do I look happy? No. Right. But that's my face, right? So I would come into school, and everyone would be like, Tiffany, put a smile on your face. Why aren't you smiling, you know? And I'm like, and other people, why aren't you in a good mood? I'm like, I am in a good mood, right? So all of a sudden now I'm snarky, and so yes, we saw this pattern. So this is why I jokingly say it's number 40. It's not quite that low, because it can't be that low, but it's lower. So I know that I need to partner up with you. My friends have taken this. I have a handful of really good friends. 2 of them have positivity in their top 5. God is amazing. He knew in high school that I needed to be partnered up with amazing people who could uplift me when I looked like this, okay? So again, continue to uplift people. Uplift them. See the positive in everything that they're doing, because I know I need it, and I know a lot of other people need it as well. All right, stand up if you usually plan out your day as detailed as possible and are upset if it doesn't go as planned. Example, you always have the same morning or evening routine. And you don't want to stand up? All right, take a look. Take a look. All right, have a seat. So you likely have the strength of discipline. So I talked about this a little bit before, right? So discipline is the opposite. You had adaptability, right? Yeah. So discipline is the opposite of adaptability, right? Adaptability goes with the flow, knows that, you know, the plans can change on a whim. They're okay with that. You might actually be an early adopter because you enjoy just trying new things. Whereas discipline is like, again, my colleague still uses, I don't even know what type of email he uses, like Rocket Mail, or I can't remember what it is. Something really old. So MindSpring. Has anybody ever heard of that? Yeah, he still uses MindSpring because he's like, I don't want to change my email. So that's the discipline for him kicking in. Yes.
So do you offer marital counseling?
We do. It's not something that we lead with, but quite often that's what happens. Whereas I want to bring my spouse in. Absolutely.
I'm just laughing because my husband's a discipline and I'm an adaptability, so that's.
So it's important to know that when you guys are going on vacation, you know, you want to just like get in the car and go, and he's like, I need to know the hotels, I need to know, you know, every tour we're doing. So it's finding that medium, right? Or say, honey, what kind of vacation is this? Is this an adaptable one, or is this a disciplined one? You know, trade off a little bit. If you're not either, you're saying?
Well, no, if you fall in between, because there's certain things in my life that I have to have. It can't change. If it changes, I get a little upset.
Mm-hmm.
But like vacations, I don't like to have a schedule at all.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just do whatever I want to do. Let's figure it out when we get there.
Right.
Because everything else has to be so structured for me.
Yeah. And that could be, you could have discipline, or it could be that you have discipline just lower. So it's not as important as somebody who has it number 1. So just know that. Just because you don't have your strengths in the top 8 doesn't mean that you're not tapping into them. It just means you have other strengths that are higher. Yeah. Great question. Yes.
All right, so it's more of a comment, but I recognize now that my mom is very disciplined because I'm like a roll with the flow sort of thing, but every day with school, because I'm still in high school, she's like, write out your schedule, write down when you're going to do your independent work. And I'm like, I just want to attend classes and do the work on my own and not care about the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want to go with the flow, and you're like,
Yeah. So I would take this assessment, see if you have adaptability in your top, and explain to her, like, Mom, that's how you work, but that's not how I operate. So you still have your deadlines, and for you, it's like, okay, I know that by the end of the semester, I have to have my papers written. I don't have to have it done in the first week. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll get inspired and do it. But Mom, I'm different than you. Absolutely. There's a lot of the parents and the students and kids that notice that. Yes.
So I have discipline and adaptability in my top 5.
All right, so we have somebody here who has discipline and adaptability in the top 5. So do you see how it plays out for you, where you're disciplined in a certain area and adaptable in others?
So in like my off days, when I'm not at work, it's all discipline, and then at work I have to be adaptability.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So for those that didn't hear, his work, he has to be adaptable, but outside of that, you're very disciplined. A lot of times I'll hear the exact opposite. Yeah, which, again, you could have both.
Learn to be adaptable at work.
Exactly.
There isn't enough. So I had to learn to become a learner
Yeah,
and adapt.
exactly. Yeah, great point. Well, sorry, yes.
I'd like to go back to the young lady here.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's describing the same situation that I have with my daughter. So in terms of, being Christians here, you mean to tell me that I can't go to my daughter and say, honey, you're being disobedient because you don't want to do it my way? Or is my daughter, saying, Mom, leave me alone. I want to do it my way, and that's not being disobedient. That's just me trying to be me.
It goes back to the SFOs, or strengths for others, right? You want to encourage them to do things your way. You want to show them, but if it doesn't work out for them, let them try it their way to see if it's better. Or they may try it and realize that doesn't work either, and then they're going to go, Mom, you're right. What did you suggest I do? I know, kids are totally going to do that, right? Yeah. Who else had their hand up? Did you?
Does this tool have the ability to identify somebody who, while they're taking the test, is futzing and trying to get certain areas or something like that?
There is some of the psychometrics behind it. That's why there's so many questions.
Okay. How many questions are there?
144. It takes between 20 to 50 minutes to take. So it's not, again, 144 sounds scary, but it will, yeah. So it's like the way the test works is, which do you prefer, being in large groups or being by yourself? There's going to be just one sentence statements that you have to answer. Strongly agree here, or are you neutral? Great question. Other questions? All right, let's do some more exercise. Stand up if you usually make sure that no one is left out. Example, you invite everyone to your party. You seek out those standing alone at the BPM event. Or you shelter stray animals because you know they need care. Look at all you includers. All right, have a seat. Did you find yourself doing this at BPM, seeing the person by themselves and inviting them in? Does anybody foster children or pets? A couple of you. All right, so you likely have the strength of includer. You want everybody to have a seat on the bus. You want everybody to feel included, right? To say, how can I identify that? So within your organization, you'll notice people that maybe are left out, and you want to say, how can I bring you in? You'll notice staff members that all of a sudden just seem disengaged, and you'll either know how to bring them back in, or you can go to your principal or your leader and say, you might want to go have a conversation with so-and-so. I think she feels left out. You have a question?
So I don't have includer, but I have individualization, and that's how it manifests itself very often.
Nice.
But, are those close?
I would say that both of them are to help anybody, right? So includers, I might want to make sure everybody's included in. Individualization might say, okay, I see somebody needs to be included, or I see somebody that maybe I want to make a connection. Right. So there's some overlap, sure. Great. Other questions? All right. Stand up if you usually do what you say you're going to do, especially if you promise to do it and you were told to do it. You don't want to let anybody down. You feel bad if you forget a deadline, and apologize often. Tell me, what 2-letter word do you have trouble saying?
No.
That's right. All right, have a seat. You're irresponsible. You're irritable. I'm teasing. All right, so we likely have the strength of responsibility. Why? Oh, wrong button. Okay. So people who have responsibility are highly credible, highly trustworthy. They do what they say they're going to do. You might be saying, why is this a lifestyle strength? Shouldn't this be traction or driving? Well, traction starts anything, and driving finishes anything. Responsibility will only start and finish things that they say they're going to do or their boss tells them to do. But like I just said, we also have trouble saying no, so it can feel a lot like traction and driving. So with responsibility, if it's a talent, you're just saying yes to everybody. If it's a strength, you have a balance. You know that you only have so many hours in the day and you just can't be everything to everybody. So that's an encouragement with people who have responsibility. A great partner for you with responsibility is going to be somebody who has strategic. Strategic is very good at prioritizing and helping people say no to things. They do not have to be a subject matter expert in what you teach or what you do. Okay, but having a quick conversation with them, a 5-minute conversation with them can save you hours. Making sense? All right, yes.
I'll say I'm responsible and I'm also very irresponsible.
Okay.
And when I'm irresponsible, I apologize profusely and feel bad for disappointing someone, especially if it's my parents.
Yep.
Because like they'll be like, "Hey, I need you to do this." I completely forget to do it at my lunch break during my school lesson hours, and then I'm like, "Oh, I forgot to do that. I'm sorry, when they already completed the task."
Yep. Yes, people have responsibility. Not only do you have trouble saying no, but if I'm talking to somebody, right, just a random conversation, and they apologize multiple times, like I'm sorry I did that. I'm like, you have responsibility, right? They just feel so bad, or they're from Minnesota. I don't know.
Wow.
That's a good thing. Wow. Minnesotans are so sweet. But that's true, isn't it? Right?
Tiffany, do you see particular strengths or particular configuration of strengths that tend towards sex differences?
So Gallup used to share a lot of that data. And they decided to stop doing that because people were misusing it. They were just sharing it as more of an FYI. But what was happening is, like, if I even shared that with you right now, it's just a subset, right? It's not the entire world's population. But in the past, when they did share the data, there was. But I would say there was a lot of overlap, too. And I'm not going to remember it because, again, I don't talk about it much anymore. But responsibility and relator, and again, some of these aren't going to mean anything to you yet, but responsibility and relator and learner, I believe, were the 3 that were common for both sexes. But then with women, empathy was higher. No surprise there, probably. And then strategic was higher in men, and I can't remember the 4th. So there are some differences, yes. Great question. Other questions that I can try to answer? All right. Okay, a little bit more exercise. Stand up if you start your day with a to-do list and you love checking things off your list. You are usually upset about the one thing you didn't finish instead of the many that you finished. Raise your hand if you also color code your list with stuff. I love it. All right, have a seat. I envy you. I envy you. All right. So you likely have achiever. Achiever is the hardest edge of the driving strengths. Again, people, you live by your to-do list, and again, you're upset about the things that you didn't get done. People who have achiever are constantly living in the next moment. You're like looking at your watch, not to be rude to me, but you're like, I have somewhere else to be, I have something else to do, I'm going to check a couple emails. Again, the smiles tell me that I'm right. Okay? Again, a good partner for you is going to be somebody who has strategic, just like responsibility. They're going to help you prioritize and help you say no to things that you shouldn't be saying yes to. Right?
Looking at my watch, can they just be bored?
Yeah. I mean, that was my first thought. And he's from Minnesota. Man. All right. Stand if you usually prefer to read a book, a blog, or an article, or enjoy watching videos because you are just curious to find the answer. Educators, I'm going to guess quite a few of you. All right, take a look, see everybody. All right, wonderful. Have a seat. All right, so if you stood up, you may have learner, input, or both. So I've talked about learner before. Okay, learners love to learn and master something new. You want to become the expert, right? So maybe if you have school choice and you want to figure out like all the legalese that goes on with your state, your learner kicks in and says, I will be that expert. Contact me if you have questions. Input is more the jack of all trades, the master of none. I just want to know. If I say something to you right now, you're taking notes because after the session you have to look up 5 things on Google or YouTube because you're like, I don't know about that, okay? Now, if you have both, I've worked with people with both. Now they are the jack of all trades, the master of some, right? I don't want to offend anybody. So again, learner's that wild card. It can mask itself as any other strength, right? So you're going to fill in those gaps in your ministry just because somebody has to do it and you're willing to do it. And then input is problem solving. And it's problem solving because you have all this information stored in your head. So when you're in a meeting, you're like, yeah, we're having this issue with this student and something just happened with their parents. I'm wondering what we should do. Those of you the input are going to say, you know what, I just read an article on this. I just saw something on the news. And this is what I think we could do. Okay, so that's why it's problem solving. It's either immediate in that you know the answer or you're going to go find out the answer as quickly as possible. All right, stand up if you get energized and excited to talk to new people and make new friends. Example, you're at a party or event and you just want to meet everybody. So did this week energize you? Awesome. You may have a seat. Did you say it's exhausting? Yes. We'll get to that. You're next. All right. Woo. Again, woo stands for winning others over. So again, like I said, you don't have to have strengths to be in certain roles, but a lot of time if you're in sales or development, fundraising, etc., you probably have woo because you're excited to just reach out and talk to anybody and everybody. I can always catch the woos when I'm traveling because they're talking to me. I rarely ever start a conversation. But if you start and engage a conversation with me, right, I'll talk back. I'm not going to be rude. But yeah, those woos that sit next to me in the airplane and they talk the entire time, and yeah, they likely have woo. But it's so great because you know what happens? So I was on a flight last week. And the gentleman literally talked to me for about 2 hours of the flight. But I had my computer open and I was working. He's like, I should probably let you get back to work. I'm like, thank you. But he's like, I need to introduce you to a bunch of people, right? He's like, there's so many people that could benefit from what you're doing. So, I mean, great. He's meeting people and he's connecting you to the right people. So would you say that there's this assumption that maybe a pastor or a principal should have woo because they should be meeting everybody in the congregation and everything, right? Right? There's that assumption. I'm going to come back to that. All right, now stand up if you prefer to have a few close friends and hang out with them instead of making new friends. Your example, you're at a party or event and you gravitate towards people you already know. Are you exhausted after this week? Yes. All right, have a seat. I mean, I'm so glad I'm here, right? I learned a lot, but I like I said, I crashed the other day. So you likely have the strength of relator. Relators are all about close relationships that you continually grow over time. So, I mean, my best friends I have known since high school. Okay, so we'll just say that was 10 years ago. It's a lot longer than that. I don't understand why we're laughing. All right, so with relator, again, we want close, meaningful relationships. So this is fun, but you might have noticed that you met somebody new 3 days ago, and you've kind of stayed with them the whole time as much as you can, and kind of go back to have those meaningful conversations to get to know them. You want to relate, find those connections. Okay, so going back to that question about a principal or a pastor, right? We assume that they should have woo and meet everybody. If you have that and you're a principal or a pastor, great. If not, find somebody on your staff or within the ministry that has woo. Encourage them to do it. I mean, literally they're like high-fiving, saying hi. I mean, the pastor here, I mean, his outfit every single day is amazing, right? So he probably has woo. But if he didn't, finding somebody who would want to fit that bill. So the woo's going to meet everybody, say hi, greet them all, and then say, now that I know you, actually you should meet so-and-so. Right? And then you should meet so-and-so. So they can hand them off to the relators. So those of you that have a relator, you're not going to meet a lot of people, but when you connect with that woo, they can connect you to other people. So woos and relators can butt heads, okay? Because a relator can view a woo as shallow. Like, how can you even call them friends? You probably don't even know their last name, do you? Right? And then a woo will view the relators as standoffish and rude. Right? Like you're at an event, you should be meeting people, right? So again, understanding how can we partner up with them, right? The woos can meet a lot of people, and then they can start to connect different people that have commonalities. So if you're having an event at your school, and you're bringing, people from the community to consider your church, you have that woo there, they ask some key questions, they're energized by that. They find out that maybe the kids are in 4th and 2nd grade. Hey, let me introduce you to the 4th and 2nd grade teacher, right? So again, the woo is handing them off and then going to the next person. Does that make sense? I saw a lot of hands go up and then they went back down. So we'll take questions.
All right. What if you're a woo and a relator?
You can
Does that
totally-
mean that you have a lot of friends that you know really well?
It means that you can go, again, it's about the breadth. So you can have opposites. So we have worked with, not a lot, but maybe 10 to 15 or so people that have that. And with that, when they're younger, they're typically more woo. As they get older, they're more relator, but they know they can turn it on and off depending on their situation. So you like to meet a lot of people, but then if they fascinate you, you're like, don't leave, tell me more. So you can totally have both. Yes?
So Pastor Jeff, who's out there in the chicken suits,
Yes.
He's a self-confessed introvert.
Okay.
So can he
Interesting.
have woo, but he's an introvert?
I would be curious to see what his strengths are. It could be something where, it could be a persona. It could be something where he feels he has to do it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it might be something where he feels he has to do it, but he goes home just exhausted.
He's said that to all of us.
Okay. Yeah. Great example. Thank you. And I don't know him, obviously, so I was incorrect about that. Yes.
So I have kind of woo and relator, and I'm a bit older than you. So I can tell you when I first found out, I had both of those, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But now in my career, I'm a therapist by trade, so I really thrive on meeting those new people in therapy and learning their story. And I love big groups, but I like making small connections
Mhm.
at those big gatherings and not going one-to-one, but when I find one that's really interesting, like you said,
Yeah.
you want to keep talking to that person.
Absolutely. So another thing too I want to point out, and I don't know how much you really do this, depending on your ministry, but when I work in more the secular world, if a colleague asks me to go to lunch, right? Hey, Tiffany, you want to go lunch? Sure. If you know strengths, you can say, Tiffany, is this a relator lunch, like one-on-one? Or is this an includer lunch? Let's invite everybody, right? Is this a woo lunch? Let's invite everybody. So thinking about that in terms of when you're planning events within your ministry, sometimes, I know for myself that if I sometimes want that one-on-one because I'm going to share something with you that I'm not going to share if somebody else is there. So maybe I need to vent or whatever it might be. So again, being aware of these preferences as you're putting together those types of events that could be small group or larger. So even for you, you can decide, you have both sides of the spectrum. How are you feeling today? Yes.
How does age relate to this? I'm an older person, I'm a woo, but I'm a little tired after all these years. Really, I've been out there at church, but now not so much.
Yeah.
Does age really factor into it?
For the most part, strengths are not going to change over time. If it's something that's exhausting, you could just be that you're just doing a lot. Or you're doing some things that are out, it may not just be that, but something else you're doing, it's out of your strengths and exhausting you more. Great question. I just realized the time, so let me skip to a couple of strengths, or slides. As I mentioned, we do team analysis. So if you don't have to read this, I don't want you to read it, but based on the color, it's color-coded. Can you see which color is up there the least? Green, exactly. You're taking a picture? Okay. All right. So this is a real team. This is a real school. And what we've seen, and I'll skip here, traction. They're very low in traction. They want to open up another campus, and you wonder why it's not happening. Okay. So what we do is we do a team analysis to say, what is this team lacking? And everything that's highlighted in red are the lowest things that we need to address. And then this can, again, be used as you're hiring new people, or you're looking for volunteers. They're starting a PTA or PTO group, a parent-teacher organization group, so to find teachers that can help fill in some of these gaps. So that's how we do it. Strengths also help us understand culture. So this helps us understand what you're going to expect at the team culture. And again, for time, I won't spend a lot of time here, but I want to let you know that, again, it starts with ourselves, but it goes to the entire organization to understand what we can do going forward. And I have somebody taking a picture, so I don't want to go to the next slide. All right. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know it's hot in here, and it's end of the session, so I appreciate all of that. Again, my hope is that this isn't a one and done. Again, wherever you are in your strengths journey, I hope you can continue to take that next step. My encouragement is to memorize what your top 5 or top 8 strengths are. Post them on your email, your door, your desk, whatever, because you know what's going to happen? People are going to ask you what they mean, and now you have to know. So my encouragement is to then understand what it means. So again, with that worksheet, it's putting vocabulary around the benefit you bring, the environment you operate best in, when you struggle, and how to have those objective conversations with people. When we work with teams, we also encourage at team meetings, if you have a stand-up every Monday, for example, to share how you use one of your strengths since the last time you met. When that gets boring, then start calling out other people, right? Praise other people. I talked to somebody yesterday, I'm like, I love your positivity. And she's like, thank you, right? I mean, calling people out for what they're doing well. So share how you see somebody else using their strengths. And again, now that you have that conversation going, the strengths really becomes the mindset for you and the culture for the organization. So with that, I want you to, again, communicate. Make sure you communicate your best. Intentionalize energy management. And I didn't really get to the other two, but think about changing your language from I have to I get to, right? I get to do X, Y, Z. I get to come here. I get to get up early and present. And I saw somebody else say to go from to-do list to ta-da lists, right? Right? What amazing work are you doing? So again, take weakness out of your vocabulary and replace it with partner opportunities. Thank you much. So with that, I'm here. If you have any questions, I can stay after. Thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful trip back.